take over and start chatting about this wonderful document.
And again, please feel free to, like I said, ask questions, stuff like that. This memorandum was recently signed 3 weeks ago, and basically it's a joint agreement between the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the Board of Animal Health, and the Department of Ag in regards to carcass disposal and debris disposal, specifically in disaster-related incidences. If there's a fire, if there's a natural disaster like a tornado, flood, if there's a disaster at a barn where the ventilation system shuts off and they have mortality based on that, this memorandum covers those things. The reason why it was drafted is because legislation last July 1st changed, and it really put a lot of the onus
to unmute your line, press *6 or #6
in the hands of either the Board of Animal Health and the Department of Ag. The problem with that is that really the Pollution Control Agency has the technical expertise to address burial issues, whether it be carcasses or whether it be debris. And so even though the law changed and it really looked as though the Board of Animal Health or the Department of Ag was in charge of overseeing the burial, we really needed to coordinate that effort to ensure both human health and environmental safety issues. So this memorandum was drafted, and basically we wanted to keep it concise and short so that as you folks get out there and you hear about these fires, we can start to really coordinate our efforts and work with each other on how the disasters and how debris is supposed to be managed, because I know we don't have a lot of time sometimes to make decisions. And so that's where this was something that, you know, you could make copies of and work through with a property owner, farmer, whoever it happens to be. And again, the biggest thing is that we're working together and we're all on the same page in regards to how we manage these carcasses and debris. So we broke it up into chunks. The first page basically, and I hope you all had a little opportunity to read it, gives you a little bit of background as to why the Memorandum of Understanding was drafted and how it came to be. Let's see. Samantha, do I actually have the ability to scroll, or not just you?
You can have the ability to scroll if you give me 1 second here.
Okay.
I will hand over the host responsibilities to you.
Okay.
And I will just drag it down, and then you can have...
Heidi will see your desktop, though.
Do you have the MOU, Heidi?
No, I don't. So you can just scroll down. I'll just tell you when to scroll down, if that'll work.
Okay.
So you're looking at basically the background. Samantha, if you can scroll down a little bit more, and I'll tell you when. Basically, if you look at, you can stop right there. We wanted to include the statutes specifically that reference the background information, so that if anybody has any questions, they can actually look at what the Minnesota statute changes currently state and really where it puts the onus of responsibility. And so basically in statute 815, it says the executive director of the Board of Animal Health under Part B is responsible for the regulation and oversight of livestock mortality disposal due to non-disease causes to protect animal health and the environment. Before July 1st of 2011, that was up to the Pollution Control Agency to dispose of non-disease related carcasses. But after July 1st, 2011, the Board of Animal Health became responsible for it. But again, they didn't have the resources or, you know, the technical expertise, because we have how carcasses should be buried. And again, there's a hierarchy. And Samantha, if you want to keep scrolling down here, I can show you that we really wanted to follow. And again, the one thing I want to stress, this is the other statute that is referred to in this Memorandum of Understanding, is the Farm Disposal of Solid Waste. And it covers both debris as well as concrete. And so the reason, again, why those were put under the background information is that you could always reference them in case you had questions. Okay, you can keep going a little bit, and I'll tell you when. Right here, shared assistant and oversight. If you look at that, we basically wanted to lay out what different responsibilities are. And again, it's a joint effort here. If the Board of Animal Health is the first person on site, they have the ability to go ahead and start making decisions in regard to disposal. But again, to reference this memorandum of understanding as to what are our first options and choices for disposal of carcasses and debris. So it lays out, again, some shared assistance and oversight coordination and responsibility. And again, the goal here is that we work as seamlessly as we can, because that hasn't always happened in the past. And it is my commitment as the supervisor for the solid waste enforcement program to make sure that we do that, because in light of the fact that we have less and less resources and probably more and more people asking for our help, we really need to do that. And so for me, that was of utmost importance, is to make sure that, again, we work together as seamlessly as we can. And so whether you're a county feedlot officer or you work for the state and the feedlot program, we just, we really need to help each other out and, in figuring these situations out. And again, it can be stressful because a lot of times we don't have a lot of time. If you have 100 carcasses of, 100 pig carcasses and it's 90 degrees out and there was a fire, you have hours to make a good decision. Okay, you can keep scrolling down a little bit. On to page 3. Farm incident response. This is carcass disposal, bury on site. It basically talks about the different options for carcass disposal. And we really wanted to emphasize that we really want to move as much disposal of solid waste up the food chain. In other words, we want to make sure that we consider composting first, rendering, disposal of carcasses at a landfill, and then the last but not least is burial on site. And if burial on site is the option that's chosen, we give setback requirements under section number 3 as to how to do this. I'm going to tell you again, these are guidelines. We want to make sure as much as we can to follow these guidelines, but it's not necessarily always going to happen. And so if we have the Board of Animal Health on site, a feedlot officer on site, and we can throw in a pollution control agency person, which we are committed to having on site within hours after a disaster, to, okay, this isn't going to work, the setback requirement isn't going to work, we'll work together to try to find the best option. But this is, we needed to set out some criteria so that it's not just being buried wherever, because that's important, because there have been impacts and there are impacts in regards to past burial methods. Okay, you can keep scrolling down a little bit. It just talks about, and I'm not going to read all of them, understanding what the responsibility is. Again, the ultimate responsibility is the facility owner if they do choose to bury on site. And so that's something that's important to always consider if you do choose to bury on site. Okay, you can keep scrolling down. Next section we broke up is the burial of concrete and reinforcing bar. This also was a statutory change as of July 1st, 2011. And basically this talks about if you have, if you're a farmer and you have farm land, if you have land that's currently being farmed, you have the ability to bury concrete on site. And this is mainly directed at things like footings, foundations, concrete manure pits once they're cleaned and certified that they are clean from a feedlot officer, that instead of requiring them to be dug up or meet the permit by rule requirements, they are now allowed to be actually buried on site, which I think is a move in the right direction. And I actually wanted to expand this language for anybody instead of just farmers, and I'm working on it. But I think this is a good thing. I think it's prudent because if you look at it environmentally, most of these structures have been there for years. And so to dig them up and spend the greenhouse gas to truck them to a landfill to bury them again has always kind of stuck in my craw a little bit. So I like this. And I also like that we have, after 90 days of completion of burial, that you're required to put a notification on your deed stating that, hey, we got stuff buried on site. And I think that's extremely important because you know, as a farmer or property owner, you're not going to own that land forever, and somebody that's going to purchase that should know what's buried on site for future reference. So we will be working with the Board of Animal Health and the Department of Ag or whoever to make sure that that 90-day window is met by having them put something on their deed that states that concrete was buried. So if anybody ever has any questions, you can certainly refer to us. We do have examples of deed notifications. Okay, burial on site of debris from damaged farm structure. This section here really still is under the purview of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and we have lightened up some of the requirements in regards to if you do bury debris on site, if it does meet setback requirements, you're not required to have a certified asbestos operator on site. That was one thing that we relaxed. We relaxed a little bit of looking for asbestos-containing material because farm buildings are considered commercial structures and fall under NESHAP asbestos requirements. But if the farmer on site can certify that the structure was built without any asbestos-containing material, like if it was just a pole barn, steel structure with dimensional lumber or whatever, the agency is willing to, to take them at their word and allow that material, again, as long as it meets setback requirements, to be buried on site without having to do or conducting a full asbestos investigation. So that's one of the biggest changes, no certified operator, and we're really willing to work with the landowner on did the structures contain asbestos. Okay, you can keep going down. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry, I know I'm talking a little bit fast, but I'm actually stepped out. I'm actually cleaning up a burned structure right now with an asbestos contractor, and they're sitting at the site waiting for me because I have the manifest to allow the material to be disposed of. So I'll get there. Again, it talks about in this section, it gives you the required setback or the setback requirements that we do need to meet for burial of this debris. But again, because it's a disaster, because we got to punt sometimes, these are goals for requirements, but they may not all be. We may be able to write provisions where some of the setbacks do not need to be met. And that's where the discussion and the coordination comes in between all three agencies. Okay. And again, the very last page talks about department coordination. I am listed for the PCA because I have committed to, no matter what, if there's an emergency, you need a PCA staff on site no matter where it is, I'm going to get them there. Because time, I know, has been in the past an issue. You can't wait days sometimes. It's got to be hours sometimes. So Mike Sturkey from the Minnesota Department of Ag, as well as Beth Thompson from the Board of Animal Health, were the ones that primarily came up with this memorandum of understanding and are committed to carrying this forward for all of us. So we will have the solid waste staff as well as the emergency responders also participating in this. So that is all right. Nope, you're good. That's it basically in a nutshell. This has now been approved by our commissioner. It is something that we can use and hand out, and is something that we are now moving forward with. So.
Well, Heidi, I know you're in a rush, but you have there's one question that came in on the chat that I'll just pose real quick. It's from Desiree. It says, has this been shared with HSEM? The debris from a disaster for a farm site is something that the county EMs would need to know as well?
I'm not sure what the acronym means.
Don't they get a copy of the duty officer reports as well?
Well, we should, but a lot of times these fires aren't even reported to us. And that's what's been funky in the past, is we don't even hear about them. So if we hear about them, then it's possible that there's and somebody does call the duty officer that we'd get a report. But oftentimes we read about it in the paper, and that's where we end up on site. So that's the communication from the county feedlot officers. If you hear of fires and stuff like that, let us know. Let us know so we can go out there and be supportive and help you out.
Okay. Yeah, she clarified that HEM was a Homeland Security and Emergency Management, which I was not aware of what that acronym was. And then go ahead.
Whether we involve them.
Say that again, Heidi.
Depends on how big the disaster is, if those individuals actually, like Homeland Security, actually get involved. If it's a significant flood or tornado damage, then yes, they do.
I suddenly heard Molly, and I went,
Okay, FYI, everybody is unmuted, so if you have a question, you may pose it. I think we need to ask them quickly and efficiently so we can let Heidi get back to the rest of her day.
I just got one for Heidi. I know there was legislation to push this back, retroactively back to April 11th. Did that pass, do you know?
I don't know, but it pissed me off a little bit. Because, I mean,
it was like, what happened? There had to be something that happened. Someone buried something to go from July 1st to April 11th.
Yeah, it just kind of pissed me off because it's just like, come on, really? So apparently there wasn't, you know, I did some digging into this as soon as I heard about this. I try not to be too suspicious in my nature, but, you know, that's just a red flag. And apparently, so the last thing I said was, well, it doesn't look like there was any significant issue that happened between April 11th and July 1st, so why are we changing the date? And that was the last I heard. So I haven't heard if that's been confirmed or not. I guess either way, you know, even if it has, you know, it's a done deal. So we just got to move forward. I just thought it was odd.
Are there any other questions out there?
You don't take, I mean, feel free to ask them. I don't need to rush off, you know, that quickly.
Okay.
I know I'm scary, so if you don't ask questions, I understand that too.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes to ask questions here. Feel free to chat them in too if you don't want to speak up.
This is Becky from Stearns County. On page 5, it says you were talking about the goals for burial on site were to, you know, meet these bullet items, and one of them is 1,000 feet from a pond or a lake. I thought that, and this is for disaster situations, I thought that this was allowed with the statute changes, regardless of whether a disaster occurred or not, that burial could occur within shoreland areas. Did I misunderstand something?
That wasn't implicitly stated in the statute rule. And are you talking about debris or carcasses?
Debris.
No, well, if you're talking about concrete,
yes.
Correct. That's
okay.
right. Concrete there is no setback requirements for concrete, which I agree with.
Okay.
But when you're talking about anything other than concrete, you still have the setback requirements.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Anybody else out there? I know you guys in the South have dealt with a lot of these with various hog fires and such. Any other comments or questions?
Heidi, just got a question on that bulleted point, too, about properties containing karst features. When we're talking about property, are we talking about the entire property, or are we talking about the building site itself? What are we getting at there? Because, you know, within the building site itself, there may not be karst features, but if you were including like a 160-acre farm, there might be sinkholes or some other karst feature on that property.
I think we just evaluate, we would evaluate each location separately. And if the location on the property that we're thinking of burying did not exhibit karst topography, then I think we'd consider that an option.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and I just wanted to clarify that because, I mean, technically a lot of land in Southeast is considered to be karst by definition of not having enough soil cover over the top of the limestone, but we're actually talking about having some type of surface expression on that piece of property then, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Like I said, we'll evaluate each site on a site-by-site case basis.
Thank you for that question, Steve. Any others? I got a request that some folks did not get a copy of the MOU. I had sent that out prior to the meeting, so if for whatever reason you're not on the list or you didn't get one, please send me an email and I'll make sure I get it sent to you as well. All right, I'm not hearing any more comments or questions out there. thank you, Heidi, for coming in. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to talk to the county feedlot officers and PCA staff. For those feedlot officers, a lot of times we hear about these, I suppose, when other folks do not, or just working in the areas that we spend so much time, and you know, by word of mouth we hear about this kind of thing.
Right. And please, you guys, and I know I don't know what the cooperation's been like in the past, but I'd really like things to change, and I really like to work together, you know, a whole lot more. So, you know, always never feel free to call or ask questions. So.
Okay, definitely. And Heidi, does that apply? Do you want us to be calling you or solid waste staff, solid waste PCA staff?
Either way.
Familiar with this?
You can start with me, and I can refer you down to the appropriate staff. You can start with staff. Either way, whatever makes you feel most comfortable.
Okay. Okay. Well, hearing nothing else out here in WebEx world, I'm going to say thank you one more time and let you go.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys.
All right. You have a wonderful day, Heidi.
You too. Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you. All right. So our schedule, we bumped it around a little bit, knowing that Heidi had to get back to work, but we did want her to come in and chat with you. So I'm just going to kind of jump back up to the introduction a little bit more. Welcome to WebEx again. Just a quick refresher, this is going to be something we're going to do every other month. As I sent out in the email, I kind of want, well, and not kind of, I want this to be a tool available for county feedlot officers to bring up topics that you want to discuss. So in the next month or two, please send me emails if things come up that you see in the field, that you find interesting, that you have questions about. I want this to act as even a forum opportunity for those of you that run into difficult situations where you need feedback or you need, you know, different opinions, different perspectives, different experience levels. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to introduce a regular WebEx, so to speak. The other piece is I just want to kind of give a little WebEx training and how-to for some extra information on functioning in WebEx. Most of you know that you can unmute yourselves. When I mute you all, if you look at the participants box, you can see a red microphone with an X across it. If you click that red microphone, it will unmute your line specifically, and you can jump in and ask a question at any time, or you can chat. If you choose to chat, if it's a question to the speaker or on the topic, please send it to everyone, and I will do my best to mediate and reiterate that question out loud. So if you prefer not to speak up and ask questions, definitely feel free to chat, and I will get that question out there and spoken. My job is highly to mediate and organize and just kind of facilitate this opportunity. The other piece that Wayne alluded to in the beginning was one of the things that happens with WebEx is when you click on that link, it brings you into WebEx, and you can you have to enter your name and your address, and then the next step is it has the phone information, and it is best if you enter your phone number and have WebEx call you back, because then it associates your name with when you speak. If you can look at the participants box, you can see when I'm talking, there's a little green lines going up and down next to the telephone. So you know that I'm talking. I don't know all of you, and so it's helpful for me when I hear your voice, I can see your name next to it. So I think for this one, we're not going to have you call back in, but if you're able to and you have a direct line that WebEx can call you back at, it is best if you have WebEx call you. And so that's where you enter your phone number. For example, mine would be 218-820-4915. And Doug just asked a question, what do you do if you are on an extension? I do not I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I will ask if there's a good way to deal with extensions. For now, if you have an extension and you do not have a direct line, you can call in using the 1-800 number until I have an answer for you in regards to the extension. Like if you can put in the extension when WebEx calls. I'm not sure about that, so I'll have to touch base with our IT folks. If you don't have an extension and you have a direct line, please have WebEx call you back. So, with my little blurb in there and saying that, it'll be helpful as we hopefully use this more, and you guys feel free to use this the way that you want to. If there's topics that you want to discuss or things that you want to say, you know, let's bring them up. Let's talk about them, because this is an awesome tool and it has good capabilities without making you travel, without making you do a ton of extra work to get in here. I know it's different, but I think the opportunities are positive. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions on WebEx or the operation of WebEx or any of this stuff? And when you're unmuted, if you're unmuted, please note that if you're talking or there's talking in the background, a lot of times it will pick it up. So feel free to mute your line as well if you need to talk or someone comes in your office or something like that. Just click that little microphone next to your name and it'll mute you. And then if you need to deal with something, you can deal with it. And also, if you put us on hold, we will hear your hold music. So that's always pleasant when we have a speaker. So, all right, with that being said, I'm going to let Don Howey chat a little bit. So I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'll unmute Don, and we can let him talk a little bit about some important things that are coming up.
Good morning, everybody. Am I unmuted?
Hold on one second.
To unmute your line, press *6 or #6.
It'll take a minute for it to go all the way down the line since there's a lot of people on the WebEx, and then I'll unmute you. Sound good? Don, are you calling user 14?
I don't know.
Yes, you are. So
okay.
We'll have to get you to have WebEx call you next time as well.
I will do that. And I'll lower my hand. I had my hand up too, but I'll lower it here.
That's okay. You can raise your hand.
Well, I did. I was just wondering again back on using WebEx that when someone is muted, that red X shows up for that particular line or for.
Yep. The red X shows up if you're muted.
Okay.
Problem is when you call in yourself, I don't know who you are. Call-in user doesn't give me a name. Okay. That's all.
And the *6 or #6, does that go back and forth sometimes, or is it always *6 that unmutes and always #6 that mutes?
You know, I choose not to use those on my phone. I like using the button on the WebEx participants box, so then you can just click that and unclick that.
Okay.
So you can see, like call-in user, for me it'll have the little box there and I can unclick it or click it, and it will mute me or unmute me.
Where is that?
Next to your name, or next to your call-in user if you called in with the 1-800.
Okay. So then I have to know what number I am.
Yep,
okay.
That's why that's difficult.
All right. Well, I will have him WebEx call me next time.
Okay.
Well, this is about the about CFOs getting maximum performance credits for work they're doing for 2012. I guess that's what it comes down to. So I wanted to talk. the annual report form, the 2012 annual report form came out around the first week of April, and it really has the same fields on it as last year. But the big difference this year is that most of the information that you'll be filling into that form will be coming from this report called Delta Tally. I think the template for that and how that works will be ready in the next 2 months here. There's two areas in particular that I want to concentrate on today to make sure you understand how to use so that you get maximum credit on your annual report. And the two areas are specialty inspections on your annual report form, and the other one is production site scheduled compliance goals. So those are two areas that I'm just going to talk a little bit about procedures to ensure that you receive full credit in those areas. So we'll talk about the specialty inspection. That's Section 4 of the annual report form. You're probably all familiar with this now, that you can get extra performance credits when you've made more than one visit to a given site during the year. And so the point here is that's if you make not only construction or compliance inspections, but also assistance or a complaint inspection. So in a given year, if you make 2 visits to more than one visit at a site, and at least one of the visits has to be a compliance or a construction inspection, then you can end up earning an additional performance credit. The key is that to get that for Delta to count that you have done more than one inspection at the site, you are going to have to create an inspection report for each visit that you made out there. So even if you make an assistance inspection, which means you're out there, there has to be contact with the producer. You have to be talking to them about something or resolving something. Then you will need to create an inspection report for that assistance inspection. That's the only way Delta will know that you have been doing these extra visits to the site. So is there any question about that?
We had a question about requesting that we put up the report that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is that under the CDOT report, Don?
Well, no, that would be, this, yeah, I thought we were going to get into this. As far as entering inspection information into Delta, that's something that I have not done, but my understanding is that they're,
that's not what they're asking for. We're asking to pull up, to run a report for an annual report from Delta. The inspection information is Delta. I'm just not familiar with which one of these is the annual report. Right there. See that CFO annual performance credit.
Okay, yeah.
So it gives you the registration year, the reporting year, and your county name. Is there any county that I can pick on here?
I don't think those, well, I don't know. We can see. I don't think those, I don't think the...
Darren, can I pick on you? Send me a quick chat if it's okay for me to pick on you a little bit here. Darren is with Morrison County, and he's one that I work with on a regular basis. So,
Sam, it may not show up for 2011, but anyone that's put anything for 2012 should pull something up.
So use the 2012 reporting year? Oh,
no.
Darren said 2011 has some info in it, but we'll pull up the 2012. And the inspections need to be locked, correct? For them to generate? Okay. So it's something else important to note if you're not going back and locking your inspections. So we'll just hit OK and we'll see what it does, see what it calculates out. So here's your registration.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This is what the report looks like in Delta. And I think that was Mary who had asked for this information. And so this is what he's talking about when he says that it's important to get those inspections in, right, Don?
Right. Can you scroll down to the specialty inspections part and see if there's...
right here?
There you go. Yes. Okay. So, looks like Garen has done, there's been a site in Shoreland. That's not the multiple inspections at one site, but that's also, there's extra credit when you do an inspection at a site in Shoreland.
Okay.
It's 22. Go ahead, Wayne.
If you scroll up, Sam, it'll hit the details there. It'll give a detail of all of his inspections.
Darren's been busy. So you can see, and we can even make this bigger. I don't know, we don't need the specific sites to see, but you can change the size of that if you're looking at this and you want to see what you've done. You can adjust the size in Delta so that it's easier to see on the screen.
So here, Don, it would show if there was any multiple inspections at a site.
Okay. Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to say about the tally, Don? Is there any other areas you want to highlight?
Well, the other area to highlight is scroll down to the scheduled, what is that formal title? Land application.
Production site scheduled compliance? This one?
Yes, production site scheduled compliance. That's it. So again, to get credit for any upgrades well, there's two parts to it. An upgrade that we've actually determined is an upgrade that you can get credit for. I think there's about 13 different ones, and they all show on your inspection checklist. To get credit for those, you need to go in and enter the changes, or if you've made a visit to a site and you confirm that an upgrade hasn't occurred, you will need to enter that data into Delta via the inspection, the summary inspection report. All these eligible upgrades are on that inspection summary report in Delta. So that's the only way you will, that's the only way your number of upgrades that occur in your county will get credited on your annual report. So those are, any questions about that area?
Feel free to unmute your line and speak up or chat. Does anybody have any questions about that area, the production site schedule compliance?
Somebody raised their hand, or oh no, maybe not. Okay.
No,
well, those, that's great. It sounds like there's a clear understanding here of how this part of Delta will be working. And those are the two areas we're most concerned about that CFOs knew how to be putting data into Delta so they get the credit for it.
Okay, great. All right, if there's no questions about the CFO of Delta Tele at this point in time, we'll go on to our next topic. So last call for questions. All right, with that being said, let's go on. The next piece is something we talked about at our last training team meeting. Ben Kroll was going to talk a little bit about what he's seen in the South in regards to construction, expansion, and permitting, kind of what's happening today, how busy are we, all of that good jazz. And so, Ben, if I can find you on here, I will unmute you individually, and we can just have a conversation. Actually, I think I'm going to unmute everybody for this part. Then once everybody's unmuted, Ben, you can hop in and people can kind of chat too about what they're seeing in their areas once you're got the conversation going. Are you out there? Ben, are you out there?
I don't even see him on the list.
No, I don't either. He was supposed to be here today to talk about this. So I guess I'll jumpstart the conversation here. We'll just punt a little bit. There has been an increase from what I can tell in our area, in the Brainerd area, which I've seen a lot of. All right. If you need to talk to someone, please feel free to mute your line. I don't know. All right. I just muted someone that sounded like they were having some conversation there. All right. In our area, we've seen quite a bit of new permitting coming through. I've had a new hog barn go in, new NPDES site. Even in our undelegated counties, which is more similar to the sizes that our county feedlot officers work in, I've seen some activity with another new hog barn over in Kanabec County. And so there's definitely construction and expansion occurring. I know our engineers are working awful hard reviewing plans and keeping things going and keeping up on permitting. And there's some new things coming down the pike with permitting that I think we're going to probably talk about down the road, maybe at the next WebEx, Wayne. Do you think that would be a good opportunity to chat about some of the new stuff that's happening in regard to permitting?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
At the next one.
At the next one, we'll have something prepared for you. Does someone have a question? Thought I heard someone pop up. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add to that conversation about what you're seeing in your area? If there's lots of activity, hardly any activity, like I said, this is for you guys to generate discussion and get going. Any problems out there that you've run into with construction, expansion, permitting, starting construction issues? Wow, you guys are quiet today. I don't know how I'm going to get you engaged. Jenny just posted a chat that she's got 7 new sites in a big hurry. West Polk County has been quiet other than more horse facilities. Horse facilities are always a fun challenge for those of us who are uniquely blessed with the 2-acre sites with the 5 horses in the stockpile.
Hey,
so
Sam.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
One reminder, we ran into it here in Blue Earth County, is to remind counties about the EAW threshold. We had a guy come in and both sites met all the setbacks where they wouldn't need NPDES, but then it was EAW threshold, and it ended up getting turned over to Kate, and she took care of it from there.
Yeah, it's really important to keep those numbers in mind. It's not only EAW, but the CAFO thresholds. There's lots of changes. You guys probably have heard about the legislature and things like that, but it's still mindful to think about those numbers, because they still mean that they, end up being PCA cases, or EAW doesn't always need an expansion by 1,000 or more. If you have a sensitive feature, it could be 500. And so those are definitely things to keep in mind. And if you're doing, the checklist, it should, I'm sorry, I'm reading chats here. It's hard to keep two trains of thoughts going on. If you're doing your checklist, that should really help with catching some of that stuff when Permit app comes in. But if people are just coming to your desk, that, you know, it might even be worthwhile keeping a cheat sheet somewhere. Does anybody have one of those up front that they can just glance at, or any ideas of what you've used in your county to help remind you of what those thresholds are? Okay, looks like Mower County has 13 permittees working on projects. Doug Boss has 5 new hog sites, 2 smaller cattle sites going. It sounds like everybody's really moving. Lots of 24-head hog sites, it looks like, popping up in Jenny's area.
Yeah, you got to be careful with those 2,400 head sites, that if they're within 3 years, you got to evaluate for same geographical area. And that's what Sarah's referring to, that she had two different sites, 2,400 head county permits, but they're going to all be built this year. And it's like, oh, nope. You know, we got to evaluate for same geographical area, and in that case it was.
Okay. So Chuck Peterson is, you know, there's a question here, did you have help from Chuck with the EAW issue and 2 barns were canceled? That was from Jenny. So there are lots of little things like that with the EAW process that if you have questions on, please feel free to call your PCA contact. And even if we don't answer them, we can definitely touch base with Chuck and give you the help and support that you need to make those determinations, because the county cannot give any approvals on EAW sites that need an EAW or potentially need an EAW prior to an EAW being completed. Correct, Wayne? So looks like Russ posted, he's got a sheet posted on the wall by his desk for help in referencing what all of those are in regards to EAW thresholds and NPDES thresholds. So it's not just 1,000 animal units. Everybody knows that of all the animal type and the quantities of different animals, the 2,500 head of hogs, 55,000 turkeys, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, this is the kind of thing that I really want us to hopefully use WebEx for, us to talk about this stuff that we're seeing and generate some discussion if there's ever questions, ever things you're running across. And, you know, Desiree made a comment that I think even just going over the EAW process would be helpful in the future, since we are seeing a lot more construction this year. And I agree, maybe that's something that we need to pull into, and Virginia just seconded that, but yes, that would be great. To pull into a WebEx just to reiterate the EAW requirements when, you know, when the EAW is necessary. And there is an EAW checklist.
Oh my God.
Just asked that.
I'm sorry.
Was there ever a new EAW checklist made up like the one that we used to use? Wayne, do you know which one was used historically?
Doug, I'm not sure which EAW checklist you're talking about. I guess I don't know of any new one or any old one. So it's, you know, it's always been the 1,000 animal units.
Sheet? There's the EAW fact sheet and then the permit application checklist. But that's all I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's just if it's within the last 3 years, and then you got to make that determination, same geographical area, you know, and that it used to be the 6 miles was the basic standard, but now that's changed. You know, you could have something that's a mile apart and be different, or you can be 7 miles in the same geographical area. But no, Doug, I don't know for sure, so I'll look to see, and I can, you know, I'm from St. Paul today, so I can talk with Chuck if there is something.
Do
Do you remember it, Wayne? It was the one you were just talking about, the one that has, like, are you 6 miles? Is this within 3 years? Is it in these certain areas of the, Red River Valley or within wellhead protection area?
Yeah,
about 12 questions.
I think I do remember something like that. And, and when they did away with the standard 6 miles, I don't think they ever came out with a new thing to say the same geographic, because, you can interpret that. Is it the same watershed? Is it the same roads? Is it, so I think they did away with that just because the same geographical area is an individual case-by-case basis. So, it may not, like I said, you could have something that's a mile apart and be not the same geographical area because of maybe there's a river between them and, there's no bridges. I don't know. But there's several things that can come up. So those same geographical areas has to be evaluated each and every time.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the question. We had another question come in that was, what about producers that are doing multiple 24-head barns in different counties? Is there a good way to catch those that are placing them in multiple counties, hoping to bypass that EAW?
No.
I was going to say, I think that's the short answer is no. Unless, you're familiar with your surrounding counties and you have a working relationship with those other CFOs and you guys choose to do something along those lines.
Or if you're letting your PCA person know and they kind of go back and forth and hear, oh, that person just built over here and they're building over here. And that was kind of too in Sarah's case, that young gentleman came in, going to build 2 2,400-head barns in her county, and he had just finished building 1 in the neighboring county a year and a half ago.
So we got caught by the geographical area and the phased action.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know if there's a good answer to that one, Angela, other than networking and working with your PCA staff and fellow county feedlot officers.
It's best a lot of times if it's not a local producer just to check in with neighboring counties.
Well, also Delta can be helpful too. If you search under that person's last name and you see 5 sites pop up, that can be, indicative of, whoa, what's going on? Where are all these sites? So that is a benefit of Delta as well, unless you've got them under different names. But if they're under a last name, sometimes you can see things like that when you go in to enter an inspection or something along those lines. So,
this is Steve. I'll just reiterate that it's really important if you do have producers coming in, just to check in with your MPCA people. Sometimes they know of a site that's happened in another county also. It's just for another avenue to look at, whether it be from the EAW perspective or there's multiple barn, multiple county. Good to check in with the MPCA staff too.
I was trying to think of an example to show you guys, like, if I type in the name of a dairy or something, and I see, multiple, like this one I know has 2 sites. It's good to look at the other site, even if you're just entering an inspection. It's good to pull it up and just kind of, even if they're not a multi-site. So, if you enter the last name of somebody and 2 sites come up, it's just a good indicator.
They're supposed to be coming at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
No, I wish I did. People ask for those in Dogwood. Normally we do in this year.
I'm not sure who is speaking, but do you have something you'd like to say, or do we need to mute your line, or?
Hello.
Hello?
We'll give you a deal.
All right. Well, I'm gonna mute some lines here.
That sounds like Faribault County.
So, all right. Whoever popped up, I just muted your line. If you would like to speak, please unmute your line by clicking the red the red microphone button. All right. Well, on that note, I think we're just going to flow on into the next and last section here. Does anybody run into any Delta questions or issues that you haven't been able to get resolved or that you'd like to ask PCA staff? And maybe we can help give an example or go over them. Well, if no one, Mike just made a comment that Malheur and Fillmore County had 4 2,400 head barns going up, and the only way they were able to determine that is a PCA rep put 2 and 2 together and combine them into an EAW. So use us, keep in touch with us, talk to us. A lot of times we kind of know what's going on all around an area, or we try to. There's no guarantee. All right, Delta questions. Any good Delta problems, Delta issues? All right, well, I ran into one with saving pieces of information. If you're working on a letter, Delta can be a little persnickety on how you save something. So I'll just give you a quick example here. If I'm going to do an inspection and I enter, so I start a new inspection action. Let's just go new, next. And here you select compliance, next, next, finish. And this is where you can enter your information, your inspection type. Let's say that I was following up on a complaint. And I enter the actual date, which let's say was 4/25/2012. 2012. And the inspector was myself. The weather was clear. Site conditions were dry. No one, Bob Smith was with me. And then I liked summary comments here. I've noticed on some of the, some county inspections that I've seen, there isn't really anything. I like to put a quick blurb so that if someone else after me were to look at this, they'd at least have an idea of the purpose of the inspection. So, you know, the inspection was conducted to evaluate a manure stockpile complaint. The complaint was unfounded. So, I mean, unfounded was whatever, ... So it gives a little blurb. It doesn't have to be a lot. And then you can load your checklist requirements here. Yes, it gives you the warning. And so I can pick my checklist, non-NTDS, and then it tells me everything was added, and I go through and I enter this to match our checklist that you can customize. So I'll go down and match that up and put any comments in here. So that gets me through the inspection entry. So it's going to ask me if I want to save. Yes. Now I'm going to generate an inspection letter. So I'll go existing, INS 004 for the facility inspection. Next. Inspection feedback compliance letter is what I will use. Hit next. And this you can change the title if you choose to. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit finish. And it kind of does its little bopping around. And if you can see here that it goes back and forth and it's thinking. And then it generates a letter for me. And it says who it's to, and I can enter comments, any violations or things I want them to fix. It has my name in it. Just kind of fill out the letter in the form. When I close, this is the trick now. When you finish the letter, this is what I do. I X out, and then now make sure you don't try to close out of Citrix. Make sure you hit the right X. And then I X here, and it'll say Save Changes. This is what you want to get to. And it can lock up if you don't save it. If you try to pop into Delta and back into the letter, it can get a little persnickety. So then the letter's in here, and I can open it again and change stuff if I need to change anything. But you X out of the letter, and then you X out of this and then it gives you the option to save. So, you know, I think all of PCA staff have closed them wrong at one time or another, and it won't save them, which is kind of a pain, and you have to redo your letter. I don't know, Wayne, have you ever had that happen to you?
No, and I'm perfect, so it never happens.
You're perfect?
So.
Just
takes a while to unmute my line there, too. So.
Mike just posted a question. When you do a compliance check and a level 3 app check, do you need to enter them separate in order to get credit? I believe you do need to enter, for the level 3 and a compliance, there is no joint, I don't think there is a joint option, like a combo option for a compliance and a level 3. So I think you do have to enter those as separate inspections. All right, just went through that. I went through that kind of quick. If you do still have questions about that, I would be happy to help. Or Steve Schmidt. Steve, would you be happy to offer assistance if there's any other Delta questions?
Sure.
Okay. Desiree just posted a comment that she added the level 3 inspections, and it's come up in my reports to the compliance inspection. I typically enter them separate. Wayne or Steve, do you have any comments on that?
I'll just, is that on?
Yep.
Am I on?
Yep.
Yep, you're on.
I was going to defer to Wayne, actually, because I'm not sure, but my understanding of it was just what you told Mike, was that the level 3 had to be, and we talked about this yesterday, Sam.
Yep.
That if you're doing a compliance inspection, you'll do a compliance and a level 1. If you're doing a level 2, it has to be entered separate, or a level 3 in order to get the beans to count correctly.
I think Delta is still having a few hiccups with some of those joint inspections. That's what the message was yesterday, I think, for the compliance and the level 2.
Can you ask the question? I'm sorry, I was interrupted, but I didn't hear the question. So
the question was,
can you add a level 3
to a compliance
in combination with a compliance inspection and get the beans to count correctly, Wayne?
No, level 3's got to be done separately.
Okay. Next question, when I was trying to get into my letter, I'm guessing that's the compliance letter, I got error messages. Has anyone else been having this issue, and has it been resolved? What letter was it generated from Delta, and when did it give the error message, I guess would be my question.
Sam, I'm aware of it. There's several CFOs that are having the same issue. Short answer is no, it has not been resolved. The reason being is our programmer for Delta is not here right now. He's on active duty. So it will not be resolved until the end of May at the earliest.
Okay. So it's when they try...
it's the compliance letter itself, and it's a word issue as far as which version of Word you have, I believe. And it's a matter of just clicking through the error messages and it'll work fine. It's just an annoyance right at the moment.
Okay, so the take-home message for that issue is click through the error messages and plug away. It will work. It's obnoxious at this point in time until our programmer gets back and can help us correct that problem. Another question? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Nope, that's right.
Okay. Jenny posted a question: when getting a new feedlot created in Delta, what are we to give to the contact? What info do we send? A name, address, or do we scan and send the application to the contact person? This, you would utilize your the email address, correct, Steve? The feedlot contact for when you do a registration update. They are the individuals that have access to Hub, which is where a new feedlot would be created and a registration number would be given.
Correct. And if it's part of a permit app, Sam, They would need the information off the first page as far as contact, facility information, if it's a different address, who there's, you know, where the mailing does that party want, you know, the mail to go, whether it's to the facility, to their home, and then also the animal unit page.
Okay. So they would need 2 pages from the application, and you could scan those and email them. Steve, would you be willing to repost that email address in the chat box to everyone?
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So if you don't have it readily available, we'll repost it again for folks to document it. All right.
Yeah.
It's 11,
on the NPDS form, it was always the first 5 pages, but I think the construction short form is the first 4 pages. But yeah, it's important that they get the animal numbers page in there.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne.
Wayne, I think it would be, you're right, I think it's the first 4 in the construction short form, but it's the animal unit page, the page that has the facility, you know, section, quarter section, range, count, and then the first page that has all their actual contact information.
Yep.
So the information you would need to do a registration update, or a new registration.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions out there? Because it's about 11:13, and if we're winding down, I want to let everybody get back to work. So please post any questions or speak up. Okay. Oh, this is not a stupid question. Someone posted this. So what do the CDOT officers do with all their old MMPs? And the agency, we've recently been having this discussion in regards to some electronic filing. And one of the discussions that we've had, and maybe you guys can weigh in on this, is that the old MMPs don't, in my opinion, aren't a necessary record for our current work that we do. And so if your county has a retention schedule, I would ask whoever your admin staff is, whoever takes care of that, what that retention schedule is for that kind of information. As far as the agency, ours will probably just be archived because they are considered a record and we can't get rid of them. But, you know, if there's no purpose to them, that's a decision that the county could probably make in discussion with their administrative staff. Wayne or Steve, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, just, you know, really, if you have 2, keep the newest, and there's no sense of keeping the old one. So as long as it's within your, if it's outside of your retention time period, just recycle.
Good answer.
Yeah, I would say the only purpose in keeping an old manure management plan would be if the fields are the same between them and being able to track phosphorus. But we really should be getting that information on the record, so I would agree with Wayne.
Okay, we got a comment from Doug that at Rock County we keep the cover page, manure source, and listed acres and throw the rest. So there's some variations in what you can keep and how you manage it. Also, I mean, if you wanted to scan that information and keep an electronic copy of it and archive the rest or throw the rest. I think it's probably a good question to ask, though, about your files. You know, we've had that come up where file management doesn't seem important with all the work and all the different hats you folks probably wear. But if something were to ever come up at a site or a case, it does become very important. So we had one other question here that you don't want to keep general information and just add updated info. So that was another take on the manure management plans. Oh, no, question, don't you want to keep general information and just add updated info? Well, I mean, if the manure management plan is updated, I want to keep the newest manure management plan in my file. If there's something that you deem important from historical manure management plans, that you could keep like Rock County, or you could dispose of or archive the old manure management plan. And if you wanted to keep the general pieces, I suppose you could. All right. Any other questions or comments? Other than laughing at me? All right. With that being said, I think we're going to get close to ending our WebEx for the month of April. Please note, we are going to meet in June. I will send out a light agenda, I like that word, a week prior to the meeting. If you have things that you would like to talk about or things that pop up and you want us to talk about them, please email me. Again, my name is Samantha Adams. I work out of the Brainerd PCA office. Send them to me. You know, if they just pop up, send them to me when they happen, and I'll add them to the queue to talk about at these WebEx. This is an opportunity for you guys to come and chat with us and share your thoughts, and also bring it to other county CDOT officers that are doing the same work as you and having the same troubles and frustrations as you are. You know, they might have a new or different perspective on how to deal with a problem. So, last call, any comments, questions?
I have a question for Wayne. Are there any new updates on legislative things that have happened lately, or where we are with that?
Lately, as you, well, maybe you don't know, the permit, the SDS permit, not the federal NPDES, but the SDS permit, excuse me, is now a 10-year permit. We are kind of bound into a 150-day permitting goal, which we still have to evaluate how that affects us. We had the 60-day law, but with the 60-day law, we always had, well, if it's incomplete, the clock stopped. While with the new 150-day permitting goal, as soon as they turn something into us, the clock starts. So we're evaluating how that affects the field. I mean, it's still only a goal. It's not a mandatory issuance of the permit after 150 days. But right now, the way the legislators set it up, that if they submit something to us, it starts our time clock, regardless if it's complete or incomplete, or if they just put on a napkin saying, I want a feedlot. It starts the clock for us. So there's some evaluation we got to do with that, but again, that's only a goal, and if we don't meet the 150-day goal, we have some reporting we need to do. So we're evaluating how that affects us. Another thing they came up with is this, and I forget the technical term they put, but they can have outside consultants write permits for us. That it kind of takes the permitting requirements off the MPCA. So, you know, someone that wants to build a feedlot, they can have someone write a permit for them. Well, it really doesn't affect the feedlot program as much because the general NPDES permit, there'd be a general SDS permit, the construction short form, the interim permit, they're all standard language, so there is no writing of the permit. Now, an individual permit for the NPDES or SDS, that could come into play, but really we haven't figured out what they mean by permitting consultants yet, because there are some requirements they have to meet. The big thing that is going to affect everybody is they did pass that they can start construction prior to permit issuance. Now, we haven't determined what that means yet. Does that mean they don't even need to apply for a permit and they can start construction, or does it mean they've already submitted a permit and we deemed it complete, it just hasn't got issued yet? So that's going to affect CFOs quite a bit. Not so much with the large NPDES sites, because we're going to claim that it's not allowed under federal permitting requirements. But for construction short forms, technically they could start construction before the permit's issuance, and that is passed. We just haven't determined, do they have to have a application in, or can they just build and not do anything? So there's going to be more follow-up on that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's very risky. Mike just commented that that would be risky, and that's one of the big discussions we had yesterday at a CDOT meeting. Doug Voss just asked a question: how does the new law affect the, well, statute affect the letter of incomplete application, and do we still need to do it? The short answer from what I can read is yes, that we still have to enumerate all the deficiencies, citing specifically what's wrong. But Wayne, would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, just because they start construction, if you don't do the incomplete letter and there's something, well, here's what we run into. If there's something wrong and they weren't allowed to build there, they build at their own risk. So if you say, oh, they've already started construction, I'm not going to review the permit, well, after 60 days, it's issued, regardless if it was allowed or not. So yes, you continue to go through, do your permitting the same. There's going to be a lot of policy developed, and we have to work with the Attorney General's office to determine exactly what does this mean for FELAP permits.
Desiree also made a good comment that this could also affect how CUPs work.
No, it will not, because and that's one of the things that the counties have is this state statute doesn't trump county CUP processes. It's only for permits. Yep, this is only for permits issued by the state. So the construction short form, the interim permits, those are actually state permits. Now, if your county ordinance says they have to have a CUP prior to construction, that's where you can say, well, nope, you don't have your CUP yet. So does that answer? I mean,
CUP requirements are actually probably definitely less risky if the producer has to go through that process.
And that's where you can also put in your CUP that they must apply and obtain a permit prior to construction.
Wade from, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wade from Rice County. There might be a catch also with the building code, because if you don't have a building permit, you may not start construction on your structure. So that's just another thing to think about.
Yeah, the state statute doesn't affect any county permitting. Or any county issued permits. So the building permits, the zoning permits, those permits.
And Virginia made a point too, so if the county won't accept a CUP without a feedlot permit, then they have to wait for a feedlot permit. Good discussion. And this is one thing that at our next WebEx, I would like to maybe have our feedlot management team focus on a little bit more, and maybe we'll have some more policy answers and things to talk about in direct relation to the 2012 session. Steve, did I hear you out there?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Just two things I want to just hit on here before everybody leaves is this session is being recorded, so it can be viewed by other CFOs at a later date if they didn't have the opportunity today to watch it. So we need to get that piece out to the CFOs, and we will give performance credits or as part of your training credits if you do view it outside of the normal WebEx training piece. That has happened with the first one, and I had a discussion with Don about that and Wayne, and we came up that yes, that would be allowed. The second thing is that I just wanted to hit on for everybody here is if you do run into Delta problems or any questions, problems with how Delta is working for you, please shoot me an email. I'd like to know about those problems and things. I know Angie's brought it up, and I know Virginia has the same problem with the letter. If I don't hear from you, I don't know if there's problems or issues that we need to work on out there. So make sure if you do run into problems with Delta or any data questions, shoot me an email, and we'll try and get them resolved as quickly as we can.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Steve, that was Steve Schmidt. He's out of our Rochester office, and he is the lead on the data team. All right, 11:26. I'm not hearing any other comments or seeing any other questions. And so I want to get you guys out of here within the time frame that I set, and I will always do that, so you can expect this to run from 10 to 11:30 at the longest.
Well,
so
I got one more.
Oh, go ahead.
One more thing. We have 2 new PCA staff. Allison Reamer has joined the PCA for the St. Paul office, and Molly Costin has joined the PCA in the Detroit Lakes office, and hopefully have the official announcement for the Mankato office relatively soon.
And the Brainerd office has a new staff person who was previously PCA join us, and that is Jessica Moore. So, thank you for attending, and I will send out the link to everybody on my list. If you're not on my list or you have not received this information, please let me know. Thank you and have a wonderful day.